For our second lesson on class and education, looking at how can middle class kids do better in school than working class kids. That's the simple way of putting it. It's about educational attainment grades you get. So we have a class variation in educational attainment. Recall the factors, understand and assess them. Material deprivation, poor. Attitude, speech patterns, cultural deprivation, being deprived of certain cultural things, books, museum trips. Cultural capital, the opposite, getting those things. Labelling, expectations, and a self-fulfilling prophecy, which we'll come to later. Previous lesson, here's the quiz on it. Read these 5 questions. If you do not know the answer, look in the previous video. Okay, so why do middle class kids do better in school than working class kids? That is the big question in sociology, put in plain English. How can we have a differential in educational attainment between the social classes? Various theories. Some people say it's material deprivation, meaning poor. Working class are poorer than the middle class. Therefore, their living conditions may be worse. Cold, damp houses lead to sick kids who miss school, poorly fed so they can't concentrate. They can't afford school uniform for the better schools. Their parents can't buy them educational toys when they're younger. We'll do some more work on this later, but that's the basic for a lot of sociologists. The working class don't do as well because they are poor. Other people say, nope, it's not that. It's not that. It's the working class and the middle class parents have different attitudes towards education. They are more or less interested in their child's education. The middle class traditionally are exceptionally motivated when it comes to their kids' education. The working class, some people say, are less so. Working class have low aspirations when their kids don't do it at school. They don't really care that much. It's not for us. Don't worry about it, son. I didn't do it at school. Yeah. A good way to measure this, people say, is to do attendance at parents' evenings. At a middle class school, you essentially have 100% attendance. At a working class school, 40, 50, 60%. Another group of people say, no, it's to do with something called speech patterns. The guy was Bernstein came up with this idea. He said the middle class and the working class speak different languages. He called them the elaborated code for the middle class way of speaking and the restricted code for the working class way of speaking. Now, we done this in class. It works like this. There's a phone ringing in a house. Yeah. There's a 2-year-old in the house and they're banging on pots and pans in the kitchen. That happens in a middle class home. The mother says, can you be quiet for a minute, please? I'm on the phone. It's quite a complicated phrase, a reason why and for how long. In the working class home, the mum says, shut up! Yeah? Elaborated code, middle class, restricted code for the working class. And so they speak their different vocabularies. And then when they go to school, the teachers speak to the kids in an elaborated code. Could everybody stop talking, please? Sit in a circle so I can read you a story. The middle class kids who speak elaborated code understand that. Working class kids who speak restricted code do not understand that and ignore it, and then get perhaps labelled as poorly behaved or stupid. Which leads us nicely to labelling and expectations. Some sociologists talk about now it's to do with the way teachers label their students. People who talk about this, what we call interactionists. An interactionist sociologist says it's to do with the way teachers and students interact. In particular, teachers put labels on the working class and the middle class kids. They label the working class kid as stupid and lazy. They label the middle class kid as clever and hard working. And they therefore expect different standards of work from them, which leads to a self-fulfilling prophecy, which leads to the working class kids getting worse grades because the teachers think they're stupid and lazy. Therefore, they set them worse work, and etc., etc., etc. Separate lesson on this in a few lessons' time. A separate group of sociologists, mostly Marxists, a guy called Pierre Bourdieu, a Frenchman, said, look, no, it's to do with cultural capital. It's the middle class are much better at preparing their children for educational success, taking them to museums. This is the British Museum. Piano lessons, lots of reading to them, giving them lots of contacts with other posh people so they can help them. That is cultural capital, wealth capital, as opposed to cultural deprivation. Bourdieu said that the working class have cultural deprivation, not many books in the house, they don't go to museums, that sort of thing. Becky Francis, who's also a Marxist, in the same sort of vein as Bourdieu, said it's to do with aspirations and navigation. Said, look, a lot of working class people do have aspirations, but many don't. But what they lack is the knowledge of the educational system to be able to navigate their way through the maze. What school to send my kid to? What can I do? How can I appeal? How can I complain? Who do I talk to? How do I help? They lack the skills to navigate it, and therefore their kids do worse. And that was thought of by Becky Francis. And we talk about this stuff here, the cycle of deprivation. We'll talk about this. We did this in class. How the working class are poor and their kids stay poor, as opposed to the cycle of privilege, where the upper middle class are rich and their kids stay rich.